Hello, I'm John Gilbert. I grew up right here in Columbus, Georgia, and I grew up in a very fun time in the drive-in theaters. My dad was a theater manager, and I guess I visited all the drive-in theaters in Columbus and Phoenix City at one time or another. I took my first picture at age 7, so I enjoyed taking pictures. In the summer between my 7th and 8th grade year, I bought a film camera, a little 8mm film camera, and I was in the movie making business, using my sisters and all the neighborhood kids as the various subjects of the film, and had a lot of fun during those times. Well, I've decided to put together a little program showing me growing up in Columbus that I call A Native Son's Remembrance of Columbus, Georgia. I was born in 1953 to Herschel Gilbert and Annie Lou Cutchin. My dad managed the Springer Theater when they were married, and after I was born, he was transferred to the Rexview Drive-In Theater. Growing up in the drive-in was a lot of fun. At one time, Columbus and Phoenix City had 7 drive-in theaters. My parents lived in an apartment in the screen tower of the Rexview Drive-In. 11 days before I was born, a massive tornado ripped through Alabama and into Columbus. The twister took deadly aim at the Rexview screen where my mother was cooking supper. Suddenly the screen tower was blown away, leaving my mother injured and terrified. My father left the concession building only seconds before part of it collapsed onto his car. In less than a minute, they were left with only the clothes on their backs. The Rexview was rebuilt, but without the apartment. My parents moved to Hamilton Road. After my 3rd grade year, my dad was transferred to the Strand Theater in Athens, Tennessee, where we lived for a short 8 months. Then it was back to Columbus. My dad went to work managing the Edgewood Drive-In Theater. Though Box Office magazine hailed the Rexview as the most beautiful drive-in in the Southeast, I always thought the Edgewood was nicer. I attended Gentian Elementary School and Richards Junior High. It was in the summer of my 7th to 8th grade year that I bought an 8mm movie camera. Though my cinematography skills were somewhat lacking, I was now in the filmmaking business. I had loved making movies, and now I could make my own. Here's my Return of Dracula that I made in 1967, my first film ever. Well, that was a little crude, but I remember that it was a lot of fun to make. My dad was a real promoter. That same summer, Bonnie and Clyde ran at the Edgewood. My dad painted bullet holes on an old car that he had had towed to the front of the marquee, and it became a real attention grabber. Summers at the Edgewood were a lot of fun. I took the tickets, popped the corn, changed the marquee, and checked for bad speakers. There was one job that I hated though, cutting the grass. Notwithstanding, the Edgewood always had a beautifully manicured lawn. There was only one time the Edgewood ever closed, February the 9th, 1973. Columbus received a 14-inch snowfall. Here's film I shot of that day and the days after the snow.
Do you have problems with ants, roaches, spiders, fleas, ticks, or rodents? You can save up to 70% on treatment for these pests at Jarrett's Do-It-Yourself Pest Control Supercenter, or visit us at www.jarrettspestproducts.com. Or for more troublesome pests like bats, snakes, squirrels, raccoons, and armadillos, call Jarrett's Wildlife Eviction. We can remove any pest quickly and humanely so you don't suffer damage to your family or your property. Call Jarrett today for all of your pest control needs. If you're not paying, you're not staying.
I can eat a hot dog most any old time, but the best dogs around come from a friend of mine. His name's Roy Cook and we call him Sunshine. He sells scrambled dogs and he serves a good time. So come see old Roy and have you some fun. Check out that food that comes on a bun. There's a drive-through there so you can eat on the run. Cook's got the best dogs under the sun. Hot dogs, that is. Y'all come.
In 1970, I took flying lessons. I made $20 a week at the Edgewood, and flying lessons were $17.50 a week. I never finished my lessons because it was about that time I discovered girls, and I found that girls were much more expensive than flying lessons. I also had another love with trains. Southern Railway had a steam program at that time, and much to my delight, I caught both the Best Friend of Charleston and the 722 as they made visits to Columbus. One stormy afternoon, a sudden gust of wind proved too much for the Edgewood screen. A large portion of the face was blown away, as well as several panels from the screen itself. My father was shaken by the event. I'm sure it was a reminder of the 1953 storm that they'd barely survived. Nevertheless, the show went on as scheduled. I went to Hardaway High School and took my camera one day. There's a fellow baritone player, had Mr. Gregory for band, and he was an excellent band teacher. And the next year he put me in the marching band, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Next is Mr. Goolsby, who was the audiovisual director, and I had audiovisual with him, and he also was the drafting teacher, and a good drafting teacher at that. Miss Emily Ameson was the U.S. History and World Geography teacher, and did a great job, as I recall. Here's a kid having a good time at lunch, and there's Ruby, who would give us a little extra food if we were nice to her, and Mr. Donaldson for biology. And oh my goodness, look at my hair. It was really long in high school, but Mr. Donaldson saw me with my camera, and he went and took it up and took a shot of this guy. And Miss Robinson was my math teacher, and that ends the day at Hardaway. Now, the summer before, I had Mr. Greenhaw as a band director, and there we are out on the field marching. Looks like we lost the loop in our projector. But Mr. Greenhaw was an excellent marching director, and I don't think the bands get quite enough recognition in the schools, and heaven knows they deserve it. After my senior year at Hardaway, I went to work for WRBL Radio. I worked with Bill Bowick, Doyle Wright, and Henry East, pictured here. After 2 years, I moved to WRBL TV as a cameraman. I was soon not only running the cameras, but reporting the news and even doing weekend weather. Weatherman Doug Wallace even complimented my weathercast. That was a big deal because everyone loved Doug's weathercast. I also fondly remember Roselle Fabiani. As soon as her show was over, we'd dash from the newsroom and swipe the Sunbeam snack cakes that were delivered daily. I really enjoyed my 6 years at WRBL. I always said that it was better than a college education. I went from running tapes and radio to having my news stories broadcast over CBS Evening News. In 1981, I learned that the Bradley Theater was scheduled to be torn down. The Bradley was the most beautiful theater in Columbus, and my dad had managed it in 1942. I couldn't bear the thought of the beautiful theater being torn down. In that same year, I launched the Save the Bradley Theater campaign. Plitt Theaters wanted $150,000 for the theater building, and I felt sure that Columbuscites would rally behind me and save the historic building. Sadly, only a few felt the same way. We did manage to rent the Bradley and get it open and operating as a classic theater for 5 months. Finally, with bills mounting, we closed the doors. The interest that I had hoped for simply wasn't there. Though my project didn't work out, I did make a major accomplishment. I had saved the Bradley from the wrecking ball. I may have lost the battle, but I won the war. The Bradley has always held a soft spot in my heart, and let's jump ahead 31 years to July the 14th, 2012. We're here in front of the Bradley Theater with my friend Tom Chadwick.
Howdy, howdy.
And John Smallshaw.
Hello.
And these guys right here were instrumental in helping save the Bradley Theater some 31 years ago this very minute. Today is Saturday, the 14th of July, 2012. It's 31 years ago that I made a phone call.
We were small.
We were small, yeah. I made a phone call to Plitt Theaters and got a hold of a John Huff in Atlanta who said he was going over the contracts right then, and he was about to sign them. The contracts were to have the building torn down, and he was about to sign them when I called. He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll push these aside for about 10 days to see what kind of interest there is." Now, Tom loaned us a sound system for the Bradley.
It was loud. It was very loud.
Oh, it was very loud. John had the projectors for the Bradley, because I didn't have any projectors at the time. They were great.
Simplex 35 millimeter E7.
Oh, that was a fine old projector too, and they still are fine old projectors. But these two guys were also instrumental in helping with the theater. And now you notice we all three of us have an RC Cola, and this is actually about 12:10, which is about the time that I made the phone call those 31 years ago. So in honor of that moment, the Bradley was also an RC Cola theater. They always had RC products. So we decided at this particular moment we're going to pop these RC Colas open and toast the Bradley Theater.
Yes.
72 years old. May it live for another 72 years. Gentlemen.
Good old RC.
Still has the taste.
That's right. It's nice, sweet taste.
Right.
Too bad we don't have bottle caps. Maybe we might get in.
Oh, that's true. Hey, thanks, Tom. That's a good idea, because I remember many years ago, you'd get 6 RC Cola bottle caps, and that would admit you to the Bradley Theater.
That morning feature.
Morning feature.
Feature and whatever else was going on. Sometimes they had little musician bands, teenage bands, and all that kind of stuff down there too.
And a cowboy picture.
And don't forget the twist contest. Get up there and do the twist. Our friend Richard Hancock won some stilts because he won the twist contest.
Really?
Yes.
Well, you see, now I have to tell you guys, my dad managed a Martin theater, and the Bradley was an ABC theater. So we didn't go to the Bradley a lot, but I did see Three Stooges in orbit with my cousin Melvin. Yeah, we came to the Bradley. My dad called Mr. Newsom, who was the manager at the time.
It was a classic.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I remember Mr. Newsom. He was the white-haired guy.
Yeah.
And he would always come down there and announce the movie and announce what was going on. And the other thing about the Bradley that no other theaters do is they open the curtain.
Big curtain.
Yes, before the show, right when the movie starts up.
40-foot wide screen. That was probably the largest indoor theater screen in Columbus. And but anyway, my cousin and I came here to see the Three Stooges in orbit, and I always remember that.
Well, I'm sure it was originally figured out as, downtown or uptown, like they call it now, was the only place. There were no malls. It was the only place to go shopping. So I'm sure it was originally designed as a place for mom and dad to drop the kids off so they could go shopping. Do that more.